I know that there are some theories. Oh, well, your kids should not, you shouldn't argue in front of the kids. Well, that's real life. You are going to argue. And I think that's a lot of folks' issue when they get married. Life is going to hit you. It's not always going to be smooth.
Hello and welcome to the How to Relationship podcast, the podcast where we find out how to make relationships last from couples who are making it work. My name is Anais Lucia and I'm your host. On today's episode, we have Susan and Robert Barton, and as usual, I learned a lot from them, and I hope you will too, especially a lesson in just because you might not agree all the time doesn't mean that you need to just end the relationship. That's a really important thing to learn, especially in today's culture. I feel like people kind of end relationships a little too quickly. They don't want to work on it. But enough from me. Let's get into the episode. Hello, Susan and Robert. Thank you so much for joining me on the How to Relationship podcast.
Good to be here. Thanks for having us.
For the audience, before we start, just, how long have you guys been together? How long have you been married?
Well, let's see. We've been married almost 27 years, right? We did the math the other day, and we've been together 29, 30, something like that. Long time.
Yeah, wow. Pretty long time. Goes by fast, by the way.
Sometimes it seems like it's dragging by, but.
So let's start at the beginning. How did you guys meet?
I was actually dating someone else, and I was in the mall, and it happened to be doing some shopping. I saw a friend of mine, and she said, "Hey, are you still dating so-and-so?" And I said, "Yeah, but why?" And she said, "Well, I have this guy that's perfect for you." And I did say, the first thing I said was, "Well, what kind of car does he drive?" Because really that gives you a lot of, that tells you, not that I'm materialistic, but it tells you something about someone's drive. No pun intended, right? But so she told me, and I said, "Well, okay, show me a little bit more about him." And he's a chiropractor. So he was in chiropractic college, or about to start chiropractic college. And so he was waiting tables at a restaurant that we loved around this area. It's called Casa Soleil. And so anyway, I said, "Yeah, give him my number," And so how'd you hear about me?
He called me and told me about the encounter.
My friend was dating his friend. They waited tables together.
Oh.
So then he calls me.
Yeah.
And it was instant. He fell in love. I'm just kidding. So we planned a date, but I had a list. So I had a whole list. If you didn't pass my test, I didn't date you.
Oh.
And so I just did, I think women, we sell ourselves short a lot. And I think we date sometimes for various reasons. And you know what? Then you fall in love and you're stuck. So if someone does not pass your test, don't date them, because you might fall in love, so don't even start it.
Oh,
And
okay.
So we had planned this day, a picnic, and which I thought, a picnic? I mean, God. All right. But he had been taking girls out to all these like fancy places, and he was sick of that. He wasn't really impressed with anyone, and he had broken up with a young lady recently. And anyway, I decided, you know what, I'm just going to sneak in and look at him at Casa Soleil. I'm going to take a peek. So my friend and I went in. Well, I wasn't banking on the fact that his friend was working at the same time and say, "Hey, that's her,"
Oh.
So he came over to the table and introduced himself. And I gave him my test. I asked him all my questions. Just like that.
Wow.
Put him on the spot.
Yeah. So I had a plan and I answered the questions, and I guess that's it. Kind of went from there. We ended up. Well, the Casa Soleil thing was the first time we saw each other, and then we went on the date.
Mm-hmm.
For context, how old were you guys at that time?
I was 18.
Okay.
Right? I think I was 18.
Right at 20.
Yeah.
So pretty young, actually.
Really? Yeah, really young.
And Susan, can you, for anyone who's curious that's listening, can you tell us some of the questions that were part of your test? Or do you remember?
Yeah. What are your short-term and long-term goals? Where do you see yourself in a year? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? How do you think that husband or a father best loves his children, and he nailed it. He got it. I mean, he just, boom, to this day, I'll never forget it. He said the best thing that a father can do for his children is to love their mother. Off the bat. I'm like, okay, this guy has it together. I like it. And he's handsome. He was really, the odd thing about us is that in high school, he was, describe yourself.
A nerd.
He grew into himself. Now, had I gone to the same high school, I would have seen his magic, right? I would have seen that in him, but nobody else did. And I mean, I saw it, you know, but he grew, like he grew these big muscly shoulders, and look, he's gonna smile. See, look, he loves when I brag about him. And so he had this beautiful physique and this narrow waist and a nice rear end, and I was like, dang. I mean, he, you know, well, I think that you should always date someone who's bigger than you, so that you look smaller. That's just that's just me. So, you know, that worked out great. But no, he was able to answer my questions, and, you know, he hates answering hypothetical questions now. He can't even stand it, but that's, how do you that's the best way to project something, is to think, okay, well, I have kind of, I still live my life that this is plan A, but what's B and C? I'm very spontaneous, you know, so it sounds like I'm rigid because I like a backup plan, but I'm not rigid. I don't think I'm rigid at all. Do you?
Depends on the day.
What do you mean? I don't think I'm rigid. I think I'm the most flexible person ever.
Okay. Well, there you go.
Well, you don't think so?
I think you're flexible. I think I'm probably more rigid once a plan is put into place, and then, you know, executing that plan. Whereas you may decide what to go eat and then decide on the way there, let's go eat something else.
Yeah, he won't do that. It's like his taste buds get set, and I'll say, oh, you know what? No, let's don't eat barbecue. Let's go check out this new burger place, or, you know, something like that. He doesn't really do that, but he is very regimented. So he eats like the same couple of things for breakfast every day. He wakes up at the same time every day. I don't do that. I need him, because I kind of would be, well, I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't say I would be like, you know, whatever, because I think I'm a driven person. But I do tend to he calls it sticky. I don't manage my time as well as I could. He's a great manager of his time.
Okay.
Because he doesn't allow anything to interfere. It doesn't matter what it is. You know, a kid comes in with their finger hanging off. Well, you're not on my schedule. I'll be to you in a minute. But
that's extreme.
But that's true. You don't. Whereas if you call me with an issue, or I know I'm going to allow you to, I'm going to give you my time if you need me. And so, in being a parent, which I never even wanted kids, neither did he. So we have 4 daughters. And I mean, we love them.
I wouldn't say we didn't want kids. We didn't want kids when we had kids, per se.
At that time?
Oh, well, no. For me, I mean, I could never see myself being a parent, really. I don't like being stuck. I don't like commitment, which is weird because we've been married so long. Wow. I like being able to get out of a situation. I like options. Mm-hmm. Very much so. I want options. I don't like that feeling of being trapped. And if I am in a situation, I'm going to give it 150%. I can't stand anything that's done halfway. So in being a parent, even though I've made tons of mistakes, please, you know, I feel like, you know, we have these amazing kids, because if I'm going to have to step up to the plate, I'm going to swing with all my might, you know. And so I was tasked with raising my daughters, and I think that's a key component to our relationship. We were talking about that the other day, like what keeps us together, because we fight. We don't bicker. We don't nag. I mean, we fight.
You get into it.
Oh yeah. Knockdown dragouts. Oh. That's what we call it in the South. And, but we do get it out, and our kids have seen us argue. And, people, I know that there are some theories, oh, well, your kids should not, you shouldn't argue in front of the kids. Well, that's real life. You are going to argue. And I think that's a lot of folks' issue when they get married. Life is going to hit you. It's not always going to be smooth. At least that's my experience. And you don't know what's around the corner, So I think in our kids being a part of seeing our disagreements and then seeing us come together and with a resolution and work it out, that it's helped them to be very well-rounded. We have our 26-year-old who's married. Our 23-year-old got married in December. We couldn't have hand-selected better young men for them. My son-in-law, with the kids, my daughter with the 2 babies, an excellent dad, very hands-on parent. And then we have a 16-year-old, and our real surprise baby's 10. So we've been doing the parent thing a long time, and it is tiresome. But what do you get out of being a dad?
I enjoy the, as the family matures and we have the older children and their life experiences, I really enjoy spending time with them and the grandkids and the diversity of our family with the 10-year-old all the way to Brooklyn being 26 and grandchildren. There's a lot going on, and I look forward to, just a lot of good times in the future. So it's worth all of the the trying times in order to be able to have the fruit. It's like it's finally bearing fruit. It's almost like a tree in the sense that it takes a long time to grow up and be real strong. So but at some point it becomes so strong you can't even knock it over. So, and I kind of feel like that's the fruit that we're bearing now.
That's a really good analogy. I like that. I like to hear him talk. He sounds smart. He is smart. No, I'm just kidding.
And I just wanted to say that, I think it is. I'm not saying it's please go fight in front of your kids, but when it happens, I feel maybe that's what maybe a lot of couples kind of give up too easily, because they think the relationship has to be perfect. If you have a fight, that means it's over. You have to. I think you have to learn how to resolve conflicts.
We do. And my grandmother, my mom's mom, was married 4 times, I think, and she said, and this is something that is very ingrained in me, that you trade once the grass is greener where you water it. And so you trade one set of problems for another. No one's perfect. And so now I'm not saying ever, stay in an abusive relationship or anything like that. But we've faced some really trying times that we don't have time to talk about in 30 minutes, but sometimes I think that would have tested a lot of people. I don't think a lot of people would have made it through some of the things that we've been through. And we worked together, we built a business together. And so, we started that 22 years ago. And when it's up to 2 people to bring home the bread and butter, it weighs on both of you. And when you work together, you bring the same problems home. And, so we've been through some things that normal couples haven't been through. And I don't think we've always handled it perfectly, but, like you said, we are still together. And I think there are just some fundamental things that keep us together. Our faith, we are believers, and we're God-fearing. And we did, we made vows to each other, and, we do take those seriously. And, and it's funny that our kids were drawn to people who, who come from families kind of like ours, these strong, families. And, now I will say our oldest son-in-law, his parents are deceased, but, our second son-in-law, we're very close to his parents and whatnot, but we've had some trying times for sure. I think most people would have given up.
What advice, from what you've learned, in terms of handling conflict, what would your advice be for other couples?
You go first.
Handling conflict. Well, I think it's important to meet conflict head on and not sweep it under the rug. I think people get into habits in terms of how they interact with each other. I think we unconsciously can react to your spouse or your other person in a consistent negative way, that if you just flip that around and was more positive. So sometimes if you're irritated about something and it comes across to your spouse as negative, they interpret it as something it's not. And then when you do that 100 times or more, on a very consistent basis, it gets you into a rut or a pattern. And I think small things over long periods of time have a dramatic effect on relationship. So if you flip that around and you just change your tone a little bit, and it's more positive, it gets interpreted more positive, and then you have a lot of more positive interactions, and you almost forget about the negative interactions. So we've gone through many cycles in our relationship where we get into very positive cycles, and then we gonna get into negative cycles where, one person's interpreting the other incorrectly, but it kind of spirals to a point where you have to fix it. So I think that would be my advice, is just small things over long periods of time have big effects. And if those small things are negative, then you're going to get that reward. And if they're positive, you're going to get that reward. So it's like, I think on a really just day-to-day, minute-to-minute basis, you should try to be positive with the other person.
He makes that sound easy though, and it's not. And I think a big piece of advice that I would give your listeners is to know how to relate to one another, because everyone has a different love language. Have you read the book, The 5 Love Languages? So, my love languages are touch and words of affirmation. And so he, by nature, is not a real touchy person. I touch everybody. I want to hug. I don't care about, let me hug you. I want to love you. That's how I show that's why I hate shopping online, even, because I want to touch it. I want to feel it. There's something about that for me. And words are very important. I would rather you just punch me right in the face than say something to me that is going to last a lot longer. So words really affect me. And so there have been times in our relationship that I didn't understand why I didn't feel like he loved me. Because and people need to know. I would believe that most people who've been married as long as we are have gone through times like that. But we certainly have. And I remember sitting in church, and we don't go to church all the time now, but still faith is a very important part of our life. And we pray, and our kids do go to a Lutheran school, the little kids. But I can remember sitting in a church service years ago and, feeling like the loneliest person. And here he's next to me, and I'm in a room full of people and feeling completely alone. And because touch is something that you see. So I would look at church and I would see other men put their arms around their wives or hold their hand or things like that. And that's something that will still bring me to tears, because I remember feeling that lonely. And that's a hard thing, because you feel like, it's almost worse to be in a marriage where you feel that way. Because then you feel stuck. If you're dating, well, you could get all those things. You could get all the feels and all the touch and all that. But now I'm in a relationship where I have someone that doesn't come natural to them. And so that took a lot of, I would say, a lot of work. And it did, right?
Yeah, I think we have to meet people where they are. And, we don't always have the self-awareness enough to realize that we're not where they need you to be. So, I think being aware of how we come across, or having self-awareness, is another big piece of advice, Okay.
And I'm curious, Robert, what is your love language? Or
I don't know, actually.
He's a complicated person.
Okay.
I guess it depends on the day. I don't think I'm not a touchy-feely person.
No, I think he's gotten much better at that. And what I learned is, I just decided at one point, because it made me feel rejected. And nobody likes to feel rejected, And I would throw fits. I mean, I remember one time I took all of his clothes to his mom's house. I'm like, done. No. Look, oh no, you don't even know some of the things that which you like. I mean, we've had some trying times, and it's hard. And now I look back and I see him as a young person trying to learn how to meet someone's need when it doesn't come natural to them.
Mm-hmm.
So I did decide at one point, well, I'm just going to start expressing my love languages to him. And so I'm going to start touching him. I'm going to start saying nice things, making sure he has a little note here or there, try to be encouraging. And I think in doing that, he got used to that. So when I don't do that and I don't, and I'm not touchy-feely, he's like, what's wrong? What's the matter or whatnot.
I wouldn't agree with that.
You don't agree with that?
No.
Okay, well then what?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't have a reaction to the lack of those things. I'm more sensitive to just how you react to things that you might be aggravated about that you kind of, I feel like you blame on me, but I don't.
Well,
that have nothing to do with me.
Like what?
I mean, just the other night, I'm in the bathroom and she walks in the bathroom like almost, I mean, it didn't slam the door open, but she walks in. I'm literally
you can't
taking
slam the door open because
the
it
shower.
opens.
I understand. She goes, well, I've been out there knocking on the door for a long time. In other words, trying to get in the house. And I'm like, okay, well, how am I supposed to know that? I can't hear the door.
That's all I said.
I can't hear the doorbell. I don't know that you don't have a key. I mean, I have a key. I don't think that another adult doesn't have a key.
Because you're so regimented
to
all
their
the time.
house.
I don't always take my keys with me.
So it's just the statement is like as if it's my fault that she's been out there knocking on the door for a long time.
Well, okay, but you very easily could say, right? You could say, man, I'm sorry. That's it. He doesn't do that. Do you?
It has to do.
No, he doesn't do that.
Well, I'm sorry for what? I mean, I'm sorry that
I'm
you
sorry that
didn't have a key.
Yeah, what's the big deal? You say, I'm sorry, babe, and then we go to bed. What does he do? He gets out of the shower, he puts his neck brace on, his breathe right strip, he's in his boxers, and he decides he's going to try to tell me like it is.
No,
and it's so hard to take him serious with the whole thing and the...
Well, when you get old, instead of a CPAP, I use breathe right strips because they allow you to breathe better.
He snores.
Don't snore. We literally went to a ear, nose, and throat doctor.
I live with you. You know what he says? Oh, I sleep great, Susan. Well, yeah, you do, because you keep me up all night snoring. Snorers don't know that they're snoring. They keep everyone else up.
All right.
So I just wanted to go a little bit back to when you guys had met and all that stuff, because we didn't really finish the story, and I kind of want to get that for the listeners. So how long were you guys dating when you realized that you loved each other and you wanted to
continue the
marry
journey?
The other person? You're like, this is my person. How did you know? When did you know? Like, how long had you been dating?
Well, I'd say about a year and a half, 2 years at the most.
Well, we were married at 2 years. But when did you know?
Mm-hmm.
So maybe a year. We were pretty inseparable in the beginning. We spent every day together, so it didn't take very long, I don't think. But I don't know those time frames. I tend not to remember a lot of details in the past. I purge them.
Oh,
okay. He's like a drive, like a hard drive.
So do you remember your proposal at all?
Yeah, we had a bunch of mementos that we had sort of collected. She likes cards and notes and things of that nature. So I put all those together into a book, which I believe we still have. And we went through all of those memories, and then kind of culminated into the last page, which was, will you marry me? And then we got married in Galveston, which is not too far from where we are now. She had ideas on what she wanted the ceremony to look like in the church, and she didn't want a church that would potentially be torn down. So we were married in a historic property, the Trinity Episcopal Church, and then our oldest two daughters have been married in the same church. So it's been kind of neat as well. So they consider us frequent flyer
right
at the church, and It's a very sought after church, in fact, because it has a center aisle and it's 150 or 60 years old, and it has an organ kind of all throughout the church. And they've taken very good care of us for the two weddings and allowed us to use the facility for almost nothing. So our other two daughters want to get married there as well. But yeah, it was a really nice, evening, the wedding and our honeymoon and all those things. And we had a great time.
Well, we showed our risk taking on our honeymoon. We lost all of our money. We gambled.
Yeah, we went to Reno.
We went to Lake Tahoe and drove to Reno.
Wow.
Yeah. So in the beginning, we were definitely some risk takers. So we literally lost all of the cash that we had, and had to credit card it for the rest of the way. Mm-hmm. And that was back in the day where you couldn't just get access to money like you can now. Just they had ATM machines, but it wasn't as easy as it is now to transfer money from one account to another account, so on and so forth. This actually probably helped us because we would have blown through that money too. We would have blown through more money. So
we took our last 20 and we just decided, red or black. Not the roulette. Right?
I don't think it was 20. I think it was 100.
Was it 100?
It was the last $100 bill that we had, and we bet red or black. It landed on green. So
it's bad. Yeah, that was.
Nonetheless, that's how that went down.
Susan, you had mentioned earlier about how you you're kind of, you like options and that you don't like commitment. So what, because I know there's a lot of people who can kind of relate to that in terms of relationships. So how did someone who likes options and doesn't like commitment, how were you able to, what made you be okay with being married? All
right. I'll be very honest, and he knows this. He passed the test. So it didn't, I'm not saying that he wasn't attractive. I've already said he was very attractive. But that's not, I don't care about looks. At the end of the day, wouldn't have mattered what you look like. It mattered if you passed my test, because I knew I wanted a certain life. And I think that a lot of women in particular, we don't have a personal constitution. And if we do have one, we don't stick to it. We make exceptions, or we think, oh, well, you know what? When we marry them, they'll change. No, they won't. Because I saw that. I saw examples throughout my life. And if someone has you have a problem with a man when you're marrying him or when you're dating him, it amplifies when you get married. When you have kids, like a lot of people think, oh, we'll have a baby that'll bring us closer together. No, it doesn't. It doesn't. It makes things harder, because now you have another human being and you have responsibility to share for a human. He was what I needed in my life. I did know I wanted a mate. I knew I didn't want to be alone. Mm-hmm. And I thought he was one of a kind. And even though I was young, I had dated a lot. I would have a date for breakfast. I would have a date for lunch. I'd have a date for dinner. And still friends with a lot of the folks I dated, which is kind of odd, but I wasn't a promiscuous person. Like one of my good friends we dated, and his son ended up dating one of our daughters, so we're still, we're still all kind of, friends. But, in fact, that fellow that I was dating when I met him, we went to his grandfather's funeral last week, so, but that's it. That's the answer in a nutshell to your question. He passed the test. That's why I knew he was what I needed.
Do you think you guys balance each other out? Because you said you're very different. So
we're very, very different.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're different for sure. We're definitely, I think we're about as different in many ways. We enjoy a lot of the same things, but as far as just how we go about our days and just kind of the small things, we're definitely very different. The only reason I regiment things is you don't have to think about them. So if you don't have to you don't have to plan for a breakfast, for example. I have about 3 different things that I eat, and I always just have them. You know what I mean? It's easy to stay ahead of it.
Makes it a little easier.
Yeah, it makes it a little easier. You don't have to think about it. So it frees you up to think about other things. instead of always having to scramble around, figure out where your keys are, figure out if your phone is charged. Oh, my phone's not charged. Oh my God, it's an emergency.
Guess who he's talking about?
It's like, how's your phone not charged? My phone's never not charged. It just doesn't make it. That's how we're different. There's a lot of little things like that. Keys in your purse. How do you not have keys to the house?
Because I changed purses.
Yeah, I have that problem too. I'll be like, I have this in one purse, and then I have a few more questions before, so I don't want to take up too much of your time. But what are your favorite qualities about each other?
I'm side-eyeing you. You can go first. What you can.
Yeah, she's fun. I like the fact that I can take her just about anywhere, and and she's going to fit in. She's going to figure out what to say to people. So I don't have to worry about your ability to, pretty much have a good time, kind of whatever you're doing. She's she's a risk taker. I mean, I started flying when I was 14, and she'd never really flown a small aircraft. So she stepped out on a limb early on in our relationship and was scared to death. But, she kind of figured it out, and now she loves to fly. So, I mean, that's a nice quality, that she's willing to look at things that probably would scare a lot of people to death, but get through it,
Okay.
So being a risk taker in some ways has been fun. And in other ways, we've had to kind of sort through them, So I like that. And she's very beautiful, and I like that about her as well.
That's nice. Thank you.
All right, Susan.
Well, I think my favorite qualities about him are, they're really the reasons I married him. And that, I do tend to be a little more flighty. He is, I tend to be, like this, and he's like this. And, I need that. We experienced Hurricane Harvey terribly. We were flooded in. Our home didn't flood, but my mother's did a few blocks. It's about a 6-minute drive. And when I found out my mom was flooded, I just take off, and my car wouldn't make it out of the little area, our little subdivision. But he knew I better go with her, because no telling what she's going to do, So, and that's how our life is. Wait, I'm coming, because he just doesn't know what's going to happen, Well,
she's the only person that, we had to hitch rides to a area where we could start hiking in. When I say hiking, water. It's the water is up to chest deep.
Rats and snakes are in it.
So we're wading through water chest deep, and she basically talks a person out of their canoe, which was in the back of his pickup truck. I have no idea how she would talk someone out of a canoe during a flood like this, but we end up with a canoe to and the guy came back and picked it up later, from our house. But we ended up with a canoe, and it took us about 4 hours to hike in. But she'll just kind of plow right through, and I did go to make sure she wouldn't get into trouble. So
well, I don't think that anything is insurmountable. I think that if we set our minds to do something, and we really set our minds with full intention of getting what we want, nothing can get in our way. And that's where we do differ as well. But I like the fact that he is very steady, and he's also attractive. And he's a good dad. Our kids, our girls love him. Yeah. So good. And our granddaughter adores him. So lots of good stuff. And he's great at what he does at his profession. He's very gifted, and I like to watch him help people. He really enjoys that. So I think we both, also that's something we don't realize we have in common. We do love helping people. We just do it in different ways. I picked up a drunk guy the other day and sobered him up. Stranger. He would never do that in a million years. But he helps people at the office, and gives a lot of service away if someone can't afford it. I think we just have things in common that we take for granted that we don't even realize,
Okay. How has your partner helped you grow in some way?
I think she's very persistent. She is, if she wants something, if she wants to accomplish something, she will not stop until it's accomplished. And I think the story about rescuing her mom was a pretty good example. I mean, we're literally walking through chest deep water. We can't see streets or roads or anything. and we were just kind of plowing through. And there's many other examples
How
of that
many
as
hours
well.
did it? It was what, 4 hours?
It was 4 hours, yeah.
To get
For a 6 minute, and by
right.
car it takes 6 minutes to get there. But
Wow.
but there's a lot of examples about that, and I think that has rubbed off on me, and I think I've benefited from that kind of persistence, and I think I am very persistent. But I probably wasn't that way when we first met, So that's I think that from my perspective, that's what I think.
Well, I think people quit too often right before they're going to reach their goal. And I think people give up. And if you have a dream in your heart and a passion, you just have to keep going for it. And it doesn't mean you're not going to fall down, but you just have to get back up. And I think something about Rob that he doesn't overreact. That's a good thing. He doesn't overreact. I tended to overreact about certain things. And he's calm in situations. And I think that's rubbed off on me quite a bit. Just, realizing, hey, it's okay. It's not a big deal. I think that's made me better.
And you're still working on it, aren't you?
Mm-hmm. I am.
Any last piece of advice for the listeners? Anything that maybe you want to share that you haven't shared on just how to, make a relationship last?
What do you think?
Well, I think that there's a lot of benefit, as we've sort of alluded to, in terms of building a family and having your family together. I would argue that we've been through a lot of things together. However, the benefit still outweighs the hard times that we went through. And you only get one chance at life. You get the opportunity to build this life, and if you do it right from the beginning, in terms of not having a broken family and that type of thing, I think that's helpful. I think that's beneficial, and that's kind of the way we've lived life. Even though we have the problems that we've had, I think we're enjoying the fruits of that at this point. That's kind of the way I see it.
Of staying together, yeah. My advice would be, you're not always going to like your person. Mm-hmm. You're just not. And then there are going to be times that you're elated and over the moon and very in love. But there are going to be times that are just stagnant and rough. And you look at them and you think, oh my God. That happens. And it's the ebb and flows of life. And it's not always going to be cloud nine. And, but another thing, though, a piece of advice, and we told our son-in-laws this, is, I don't believe that women are made to carry a huge burden financially. We're so spread thin as women to have a second income, to raise the kids, because I don't care as far as we have come a long way, baby, right? We have, and I'm all about women's rights. Please don't get me wrong. I cherish my right to vote. And I've raised our girls to be strong and independent women, but there are things that personally I don't feel like we're made for. And I think it wears us out. I think it makes us depressed and anxious. And here are women who, now 2 people rely on her income and she has to take a 6-week-old baby to daycare and go back to work. That's hard. And, I think that kind of we need to reassess that. Because just, I think too many pressures are put on, and I'm not saying that's a pressure that was put on me necessarily. I'm just saying that if in giving advice, that's something that is really important. That women, we are sensitive creatures, and I'm proud of the fact that I am sensitive. And he needs to understand that I'm not a man. You're not living with a man. You're living with a woman. And you're very fortunate to be living with this woman. I'm just kidding. But no, that would be my advice, is for men just to realize, that women are feminine and treat them that way,
That's good advice, especially today. I'm a little bit more traditional, so I kind of agree more with you than, a lot of people now on dating apps and all that stuff. It's different culture.
It is a different culture. But there's a lot to that too. I mean, I would do a dating app as a single woman. I would, but because they use a lot of the tests to pair you, that we had to take a test, and we took the Myers-Briggs, and the Reverend that married us said we're the most compatible couple he had ever married. That's what he said.
Do you know your Myers-Briggs types? Do you remember?
So many of them now. What are the choices?
I'm an E.
Oh, yeah, that's right. ENTJ. I'm an ENTJ.
I forgot. We are off by one. There's one that's different, but that complement each other.
And I'm barely more extroverted than introverted.
Barely,
so,
yeah.
Okay, interesting.
I don't remember what.
Okay.
She's definitely an E.
Yeah, I'm an E something.
She's not an ENTJ, I can tell you that right now, but she's an
maybe
E.
ENFP.
That's what I am.
Yeah.
I am an ENFP.
I kind of could tell because I have a lot of friends who are ENFPs. So that's my guess. I was like, I feel like she might be ENFP. I'm INFP, so I'm one letter off from you. So that's pretty cool. Yeah. All right. Well, I think that's about it. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time. Thank you for sharing. I love having these conversations because I learn so much from every couple, and just love hearing your stories and just everything you've learned.
Well, it's our pleasure.
And I'm sure like our listeners will learn a lot too. So thank you so much.
Well, I mean, we got in an argument on your podcast.
It's real. It's real. Yes.
It's real. Yes. Not scripted. That's life,
Yeah. Couples are not humans, we're not perfect.
No.
So yeah.
That's right. We're not.
And you still love each other, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. We'll so just because you disagree on something doesn't mean you don't love each other. So
that's right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Right. Well, thank you so much.
My last question, I always forget. Yeah. Do you have anything you want to share in terms of like social media or projects or anything? I always let people share if they want to.
We have several businesses. I mean, we have 2 podcasts ourselves. One with Peak Performance,
which is the clinic.
Which is the clinic. That's one we just started. But then Office Automated is our other business, and we help business owners automate their marketing and operations so they can enjoy more time freedom.
Well, that's built out of the nightmares of us running a small business.
Okay.
So we have a software that helps accomplish that, and then different marketing. We have personnel that helps them put together a podcast, for example, if they want to, or a graphic artist to update their website, or all kinds of video editors.
We teach them how to market themselves.
Basically, yeah.
Nice.
The overriding idea is to give them time freedom, financial freedom, so they can enjoy their lives. A lot of business owners are definitely kind of bogged down in the putting out fires and trying to make enough to make it. And if that wasn't the case, then 50% of the businesses wouldn't fail after 5 years. I mean, it's a well-known stat. Mm-hmm. So running business is not always easy, and we try to make it easier. So we help a lot of professionals, dentists and other chiropractors, medical doctors. We have a hospital, financial advisors, all kinds of different professionals that we support. So yeah, that's called Office Automated. That's our other business.
All right. Well, thank you again, Susan and Robert.
Thank you.
Well, thank
Good
you.
luck. Good luck with your projects as well.
Yeah.
Doing a great job. Doing a great job. Thank you.
Good to meet you.
Bye.
Good to meet you too. Bye. All right. So that is it for this episode of the How to Relationship podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much to Susan and Robert again for being on the podcast. If you want to check out their website, it is linked in the show notes and video description. If you're watching on YouTube, you can follow the podcast on Instagram at How to Relationship Podcast, on Facebook. If you want to be on the podcast, if you're in a long-lasting relationship, or if you know of a great couple that you think should be on the podcast, please send me a DM on Instagram, message on Facebook, or you can also email the podcast. It's htrelationship.podcast@gmail.com. Also, if you like how my hair looks and you think it looks nice and smooth, well, that is thanks to Nature Lab Tokyo hair products. I highly recommend it. I love how my hair feels when I use them. They have different products depending on what you want to achieve. I use the repair products. So if you want to try them out for yourself, you can use the link in the video description and use coupon code HTRPOD10 to get a 10% discount. Everything is linked in the show notes and video description. Again, I'm your host, Anais Lucia, and I hope to see you back here again for another episode of the How to Relationship podcast.